It has been 6 months since I bought the Ricoh GR IV. 6 months since the rest of my camera started collecting dust on the shelf. I have used this camera almost every single day for the last half a year, and I have taken over 15,000 photos. And after all that time, I have a lot to say. The truth is that I love the GR4 and it has changed many things. It hasn't made me a better photographer, but it has certainly changed the approach when photographing on the streets. Some it for the better, and some it for the worse. This video is not going to be a technical review of the camera, but rather a close look at my experience after using it every day. I think it's just as important to discuss, especially if you're trying to get one. Alright, let's talk about how this camera changed the way I approach street photography, starting with an unexpected benefit. Before we even talk about luck, let me show you something interesting. This is my smartphone, and this is my Ricoh GR IV. As you see, the GR4 is not much bigger or heavier. Because of that, it has removed almost all the friction of carrying a camera. Before, I would usually take a camera with me only when I plan to go out and shoot. I would pack my camera bag, choose the right lens, and make time just for photography. Since I bought the GR4, I carry it with me almost everywhere I go. It is so convenient to carry and it fits even in my jeans pocket. Having a camera always with me means that I never miss capturing unexpected moments on the street. If I notice something interesting happening on the way somewhere, I will simply take the GR4 out and take a shot. Some of my favorite photos were never planned. They happened while commuting, going for shopping, or simply walking somewhere. Those are moments I would have completely missed if my camera had been sitting at home. I didn't suddenly become more talented over the last 6 months. I just drastically increased the amount of time a camera was physically in my hands. Street photography is a numbers game. The more you're out shooting, the more chances you have to capture something unexpected. Lucky street photography is about being at the right place at the right time while having a camera with you. And in that sense, yes, the Ricoh GR IV has made me a lot luckier. Before the GR4, I would spend half of my time fishing and half of my time hunting. And in case you're new to photography, fishing is when you find an interesting spot and wait patiently for the scene to unfold or for your subject to walk into your frame. Hunting is when you're constantly moving and chasing scenes and subjects, trying to capture moments as they happen. The thing I didn't expect when I started using the GR4 is that I do a lot more hunting. When using this camera, I constantly find myself impatient of waiting and I want to constantly keep going and keep looking for the next thing to capture. Before, I would spend even a full hour in a spot I really liked, waiting for things to happen. Now, when using the GR4, I rarely find myself sitting in one spot for more than 5 minutes. I don't know, maybe it's just me, or maybe it's the lack of a viewfinder or how easy this camera is to use, but it certainly feels less exciting waiting with this camera in my hands. Moreover, continuously hunting for scenes has made me notice 2 things. First, it made me better at noticing moments before they happen, and second, it improved my reaction time. The last few months I have managed to take some very exciting and dramatic shots just because of this camera. Also, most of my photos now have much more energy and movement, especially compared to before. But on the other side, I have to admit, constantly hunting for scenes is very exhausting. Sometimes I just miss those very moments that happen when you're patient and waiting for the scene to fall into place. The Ricoh GR IV has also changed how I approach distance to street photography now. I was used to getting close, but my approach was to get 1 or 2 shots and then quickly move on. Now I'm more comfortable on getting closer to people and also staying closer until I get the shot I want. The great thing is that in most cases people don't react because they don't feel threatened by the size of this camera. In many cases they don't even notice it. Another thing that is also important is that this camera is using a leaf shutter which is completely silent. Listen to that. You can barely hear anything, which means that in most cases, people won't even know that you're taking a photo. All of that makes it much easier to get closer to your subject and capture some really strong photos. This is especially important given the fact that this camera uses a 28mm focal length. I think this is as close as becoming invisible on the streets. There is no camera that can offer that, and that's why you pay a hefty price for it. Being invisible is something I take for granted now, and I really notice a difference every time I switch to a bigger camera. When I use larger gear and I follow the same approach with the GR4, people immediately notice me and sometimes even try to hide. And because I'm so used to getting very close with the GR4 now, switching to a bigger camera suddenly makes photography harder. Before I bought the GR4, I was always used to photographing with just a viewfinder because all my cameras had one. After I switched to the GR4, my biggest struggle was that I was constantly looking for a viewfinder. It took me some time to get used to shooting with just a screen, and there was certainly some adjusting period and some awkward moments. Since the last months I have been photographing a lot using the screen of the GR4, I noticed some annoying downsides, which I think they are worth mentioning. One of them is that many times my photos end up being crooked. Even though they look straight on the screen when I take them, they still come out crooked. That means I need to fix them during editing, which usually results in cropping things out. To make things more challenging, the screen doesn't flip out, so when photographing from lower or higher angles, I can't properly see when I'm photographing. Another drawback is that it's difficult to shoot in harsh light. In very bright days, it's difficult to see what's going on the screen, even when the brightness is on the highest level. Also, the lack of a viewfinder takes away the immersive experience photography offers. Sometimes I'm struggling to see small but important details in the screen that could make the frame even better. And even though there are external viewfinders you can use, unfortunately none of them offers exposure metering, which for me is a must for using one. The most surprising fact is how used I have become to the screen now. Every time I switch to a bigger camera, I always look at the screen by default, which introduces all the negatives we just discussed. It always takes time for me now to switch between the GR4 and a bigger camera. All in all, for me the biggest drawback of the Ricoh GR4 is the lack of a viewfinder. But I guess that's the price I have to pay for using such a small camera. This is something I definitely didn't see coming. It doesn't have to do much with photographing, but with everything that comes after that. Because now I carry the GR4 everywhere, that means I capture more photos and not only street photos anymore. I use the GR4 to also capture moments with friends and family, something that I was never doing with any of my other cameras. For all those moments, I used to use my smartphone, but I also use the GR4 because it's so convenient to carry and the quality is much better. Because I take more photos, that means that I need to spend more time behind a laptop importing, curating and editing. I always used to catch up with the photos I was taking. Now I have a backlog of unprocessed photos of months, not just weeks. Taking more photos also means that I need more storage and hard drives. Using custom recipes and shooting in JPEG helps with storage and also removes the friction of editing. But it is not always desirable and I still need to spend time managing and deleting unused photos. So a middle ground I have found for improving my workflow is to use JPEG when photographing friends and family and RAW for street photos. I'm also never using continuous shooting anymore and try to be more selective before pressing the shutter. It's actually funny, I never thought that photographing more will come with so many trade-offs. So yeah, the GR4 has made me photograph more, but has also made me spend more time behind my laptop. For better or for worse, the Ricoh GR4 is the only camera that has brought so many changes to my daily photography and workflow. Using a camera of this size has made me not only to photograph more, but also to keep enjoying it. It simply reminded me how much fun it is to carry a camera with me every day, despite the challenges that come with it. If you're curious to see the results of using this camera for the last 6 months, take a look at my Instagram account. Almost every photo I have uploaded there for the last half a year was shot on the GR4, so you can see exactly what I was talking about in this video. If you're also using a Ricoh camera, let me know in the comments below what are the changes it brought to your photography. And that's all for today, folks. Happy shooting and see you again next time.